Good day, my name is Giselle Bactadan and I'm going to report about the extension communication, its basic elements and models. So what's all about the topic? It's all about communication. So what is the importance of communication? Communication is the unavoidable tool that makes organization work out possible. It is the vehicle through which the basic managerial and administration function are carried out. Managers and administrators direct through communication. So, classifications of communication according to the different fields, channels, organization, and purpose. When communication is used by the field workers in bringing new ideas to farmers, it is called the agricultural extension. When communication is channeled through public media like the television, radio, YouTube, and etc., it is described as mass communication. When it operates within an organizational structure or bureaucracy, it is organizational or administrative communication. When it is system for selecting information specifically for management purposes, it is management information system. So next is the element of communication, the model of communication which includes SMRCE or the source, message, channel, receiver, and the effect. So first one is the source. Source is a person sending out his idea. In your case, this is the extension worker or the extension agency. So yung source is yung nanggalingan ng message. So there are characteristics of source, the homophily, credibility, and there are dimensions of credibility, the character, competence, composure, and dynamism. Next is the message. Message is an idea being shared between two or more persons. This idea may be in the form of skills, new knowledge, or favorable attitudes. Example are the new rice technologies versus the old farm practices. So, yung message is yung message talaga, yung message, 'di ba? Yung gusto mong iparating sa ibang tao, ganon. So, there are factors of message. Number one is the code, content, and the treatment. So, next is yung receiver. So, another person receiving the idea. They are the targets of the communication. So, yung receiver, sila yung nagre-receive ng mga message na nanggaling kay source. And siya rin yung target ng communication. Diba, bakit tayo nagko-communicate? Kasi gusto natin na masabi yung or iparating sa kanila yung message. Ganun. So, next is the channel. The method by which the idea is conveyed. It may be verbally expressed, either orally or in print, or it may be sent through illustration, pictures, and etc. So, yung channel naman is kung saan nila makikita, like sa newspaper, sa television, sa cellphone, or kung anumang gadget. Ganun. Next naman is yung effect. The desired goal of communication planned by the source, one of a positive change in behavior on the part of the receiver. So, yung effect is yung magiging effect doon sa naka-receive o sa receiver. Kung like sa politics, diba? Ngayon, pag yung message mo is nagsasabi ng parang nanghihikayat, it's either yung effect nun sa tao is mahihikayat or hindi. Like ganon. We also have feedback. So, feedback serves as corrective function by preventing communication breakdown. Feedback helps determine whether or not a message was perceived as intended. If not, adaptations, modifications can be made. So are the type of response. One is the cognitive effect. It conveys knowledge, awareness, thought, and skills. Neutralization, shifting of an existing attitude to the neutral zone. Boomerang effect, a shift opposite to that direction that is intended. Conservation, maintenance of existing attitude. Attitude reinforcement or strengthening of existing attitude. Shift to the opposite sign from plus sign to minus sign and vice versa. There are 4 levels of communication. The interpersonal communication, interpersonal communication, organizational communication, and the mass communication. So what is the interpersonal communication? It is communication with oneself. All persons have the capability of engaging in conversation with themselves, hence focus on individual all his cognition and attitudes. So, next is the interpersonal communication. It is the interaction between 2 or more individuals in a face-to-face situation. So, in an organizational communication, it refers to the structure and functioning of units within an organizational system. Extension workers as well as the client learners have to follow the line of command in an organization. Mass communication. It pertains to the interaction of individuals with various public thoughts through mass media such as TV, radio, and newspaper, and etc. These are the models of communication. One is the Borlaugh's model in 1960. Borlaug has recognized the following elements in the communication process. So first is the communication source, encoder, message, channel, decoder, and the communication receiver. Next is the Legans model in 1961. Legans has accepted the response as the main factor. Communication. This is the process of Legans model. Communication, message, channel, treatment, audience, and audience response. Next is the literal model in 1962. Literal model has also added the communication noise. So first is the selection, the encoder, the transmission, and the receiver, the noise and the channel, decoder, decoding, and selection. Next is the Wesley and McLean's model in 1968. They have involved the feedback in their model. According to them, the message from the communication source by the sender reaches to the receiver and he feedbacks to the sender. So, this is the process. So, the sender will send the encoder, channel, decoding, receiver, and the receiver will give feedback to the sender. So next, the Aristotle model. In the subject of the communication about 2,000 years ago, from Aristotle and Plato's time, the systematic work had been initiated. Aristotle told there are 3 elements. From this model, there is achieved a basis to formulate the models. Number 1 is the speaker, speech, and the audience. Shannon and Weaver's model. Shannon and Weaver produces a general model of communication known after them as the Shannon-Weaver model. It involves breaking down an information system into subsystems so as to evaluate the efficiency of various communication channels and codes. They propose that all communication must include 6 elements. the source, encoder, channel, message, decoder, and the receiver. This model is often referred to as the information model of communication. A drawback is that the model looks at communication as a one-way process that is remedied by the additional of the feedback loop. Noise indicates those factors that disturb or otherwise influence message as they are being transmitted. Osgood and Scrum's model emphasizes the circular nature of communication. The participants swap between the roles of source or the encoder and receiver or the decoder. Wilbur Scrum stated, in fact, it is misleading to think of the communication process as starting somewhere and ending somewhere. It is really endless. We are little um, switchboard centers handling and rerouting the great endless current of information. Next is the organizational communication. Since extension workers are their clients' learners belong to an organization, it is imperative to include communication in an organization. Organizational communication is the type of following the structure of an organization. It tends to follow patterns of formal and informal processes corresponding to those structures. Formal channels of communication are those indicated by the management structure and formal reporting system. It is prescribed who reports to whom and what forms this communication will take place. On the other hand, informal channel of communication is the inception personal network of information among employees fostered by social relationship and friendship. Next is the categories of formal communication in an organization. Number one is the cross communication. This type of the communication is run through the agriculture and different types of agencies. It means that the communication should be of both sides. Next is the upward communication. In the absence of upward communication, the downward communication will be dull, incomplete, and ineffective. For moving any administration, two-way channel of the communication is needed. In the democratic decentralization system, in the content of rural development, the upward communication has its important place, but the disorder or disturbance of the communication system, the insulting behavior of the senior officers towards subordinates, and the senator do not pay attention to the problem of juniors. Barriers to effective communication may be defined as any obstruction that comes between the source and receiver that aids in altering by which the original meaning of the message is altered. There are several reasons of the emergence of noise. Some of them are failure. One of them are of a channel to reach the intended audience. Usually no one channel reaches to the entire audience. For example, meeting all cannot attend. Radio all don't have written matter. All can't read. On the part of communicator to handle channels skillfully. For example, meeting if everyone can't hear. To select channels appropriate to the objective of communicator, all channels are not equally useful in attaining a specific objective. For example, in method demonstration, radio cannot serve. To use channels in accordance with the abilities of the audience, for example, written material cannot serve to illiterate effectively. Next is to avoid physical distraction. Example is in meeting, people going in and out, loud noises in or out of the group, an attractive exhibit. of an audience to listen and look carefully. Next, to use enough channels in parallel. 5 to 6 channel used in combination are best. Next, to use too many channels in a series. For example, AO, AAO, and agriculture supervisor, village leader, local cultivator.